Did you ever say something and then you immediately ask yourself, huh, why did I say that? You didn't mean it, you didn't plan it, and yet there it was. The words was out of your mouth before, and there was nothing you can do. But the good news is that was not because you are careless. It's because your brain reacted before you had a chance to think. And to understand why that happens, we need to understand how the brain actually works. In order to change our life, we need to start with this biology. I know, but I'm gonna give you the core idea, simplify and powerful. We spoke in the last video that our brain is divided in three parts. It's the reptilian brain, the limbic system, and the neocortex. And each have different function. But when it comes to decision and communication, the brain runs on two systems. This was studied for over 40 years by the psychologist Daniel Kahneman, who proved something shocking enough to win a Nobel Prize in 2002. Psychologist Daniel Kahneman is one of the most well-known specialists in cognition and behavior economics. Studied the brain's decision-making and mechanism for more than 4 decades. I'm gonna start with the system 1, and also is kind of explain why we react, because the system 1 is the fast thinking, automatic, emotional, unconscious, zero effort, rigid. This is the system that snap right back in an argument, judge someone instantly, send that text right away that you later regret. And it's also the system where if you receive a text with "we need to talk," before the logic enters in the room, your chest is already tight. This is system 1. And then we have system 2, which is slow thinking, consciousness, rational. This system needs effort and is energy hungry, but it's flexible. But that's why many people communicate from system 1, because it's fast. This system is used, let's say we need to calculate something, or we pause before responding. You choose how to say something. But also, if you are exhausted after work and someone asks you a very serious question, you don't respond so wisely. You respond shortly, not because you don't care, because you are tired, and then the system 2 is offline. Now let's go into the next topic, why we default to autopilot. Most of us live under the impression that the system 2 is the rational system, is responsible for all the decisions we make, like where to study, who to marry, how to communicate, and what relationship to maintain at work and at home. We believe we are making this decision consciously. However, our lives are largely controlled by the first system, the unconscious system. We use 95% of the time unconscious system. So let me explain why this happened and why it's so hard for us to learn how to communicate consciously. Yeah. Simply put, every day we have to make a huge number of decisions. How to sit in the car, how to press the pedal on the car, how to brush our teeth, how to drive, how to tie our shoelaces. This is a lot of micro decisions. So another example is, you go and get choose the same familiar brand from the grocery store without comparing. You raise your tone slightly when you feel challenged. You interrupt someone mid-sentence without deciding to. It's automatic. You open the Instagram and you start scrolling the second you feel bored. So this is thousands of decisions daily. It will be practically impossible to use the rational system for all these decisions. Our body will be exhausted by noon if we have to be conscious and think about everything every single day. So then the brain cheats. The system one runs most of the time. Yes, including our conversations. And that's why we speak without thinking. We say things we don't really mean. We hurt relationship without intention. System one, just to give you some examples, sounds like that. You never listen to me. Stop being so sensitive. You're impossible to talk to. You always mess this up. This system is the fast, is emotional, is the automatic, while the system two sounds more like this. Could you listen to me now without interrupting? Can you help me understand why this hurt you? Can we slow this conversation down so we don't hurt each other? Next time, could we try a different approach together? You see, it's the same situation, it's the same need. It's just completely different system of operation. Also, think before you speak. What actually really means is that this phrase doesn't mean be nicer, be a nicer girl. It means actually stay in system 2 long enough to choose. Because the moment you slip into the system 1, communication becomes rigid. The empathy shuts down. The fight, flight, freeze activates. So also, this is also why it's a bad idea to interrupt someone that is deeply focused. If they're in the system 2 and they're focusing on something, they might be forced to switch to system 1 to answer you. And the system 1 reacts with fight, flight, freeze, reacts, argument, rational decision, including how to communicate. So take time for analysis and deduction. They require extraordinary effort and energy. That's why people use the second system, the rational system, very rarely. So most of the time, system 1 generate suggestions, certain emotions or reactions. And we should ideally make decision using the system 2. For example, if I'm gonna go to the office and I feel uncomfortable with one of my colleagues that continue to make me feel intuitive that something is off, something is wrong, then I should use system 2, the rational system, to realize that I need to communicate with her. I need to understand what happens and why she feels this way, what my mind and brain are processing that makes me intuitively uneasy around her. Unfortunately, we have very little chance of operating 100% of the time consciously. For most of the time, we are not operating from our system 2, and most conversation, office or home or anywhere else, happen when we don't have long we don't have enough energy, and we no longer have the effort or energy to fully support the consciousness communication. System 2, the conscious system, steps in when our automatic system doesn't provide an immediately answer. For instance, if you are thinking, let's say, what to buy for your husband or friend, you don't have automatic response, so the system 2 kicks in. It also steps in when you recognize a mistake that you did, like if it happened to, for example, you hire someone that they don't really do their job how it's supposed to do. Your intuition, the feeling, the system 2 will start to offer rational arguments and option about why that might be the case. System 2 has many limitations, and it's good to be aware. It's good to be aware of them. Researchers have discovered that when, let's say, a person is occupied with a task that require fully engaging in system 2, the self-control capacity decrease. This makes them more likely to give in temptations. For example, if your kid is doing the homework and you put a bowl of chocolate on the table, most likely he will eat more without realizing. Or if you tell him it's time to take a bath, they won't be able to focus of what you are saying, because the system 2 is engaged and they are completely disconnected for any small talk. That's because they cannot control themselves as easy. If after 3 hours of interaction at the office you feel suffocated, mentally exhausted, you have these long meetings, you have these bombarded emails and texts, and the first thing when you want to do is to get home and eat something that compensates for that huge loss of energy from system 2. Both system 1, the unconscious system, and the system 2, the conscious system, participate in all our verbal interactions. When we speak, we mostly do it automatically, without always cognitively realizing how the other person perceives what we say, why we are saying what we are saying, or how much we might harm a relationship in that moment. And it's true, we mostly speak on autopilot, and very few people train their brain to think and make that extra effort to analyze to take a pause before you answer. Now, I want to talk about the fundamental differences between these systems, and especially how they affect our communication. The multitasking, which is system 1, and the single tasking, which is the system 2. The unconscious system is a multitasker. You probably noticed that while you're brushing your teeth, you can let the water run, you can turn off the light, you can do little things around the bathroom because it's all automated. And another example, if someone is in the kitchen, you can cook many different dishes at the same time because it's a multitasking and it's automated. I am guilty of that. I even cook 2-3 dishes or nothing at all. The system 1 is the unconscious system. It's rigid. It communicates. In communication, that means it's more negative information than the positive. We start to become rigid. We get upset, and that's why system take over, preventing us from opening up or seeing an alternative solution. If you tell your child you didn't eat lunch today, you didn't eat your lunch today at school, you didn't put your shoes back, you didn't, brush your teeth, they will become very rigid, shut down, and they won't be able to communicate with you consciously. It's the same with your spouse or at the office or with your friend in any communication situation. So system 2, the conscious system, it's flexible. For instance, in a conversation, if you hear someone saying something you don't agree and you are operating from system 2, you can stay open and you can stay calm and you can respond with, okay, I don't agree with you, but I understand your perspective. Try doing that when you are extremely tired after a whole day at the office, and you come home and someone tells you 3 negative things, and that's practically impossible because the rigid system 1 takes over and says, okay, this is a survival threat and you either fight, flee or freeze. System 2, focus on the positive, on the bright information, on the opportunity. Is based on the reason, and that's why it sees solution. Some people are focusing on the problem, which means they're deeply stuck in automated system 1. Other focused on solution, open, rational, and able to view the issue from a different perspective. Another point is the concrete versus abstract. The system 1 is focused on the concrete, is attention in the present, in the now. It cannot travel through time. It cannot think about the consciousness. That's why it just says whatever it thinks and just throws words into the other person without empathy, without consideration, without thinking of the consequence for the relationship. While system 2 is focused on the abstract. It's attention motivate between the past and the future, and because it can anticipate the future, it can travel, it can think about consequences and what it says in order to how to wrap the message and how to speak more consciously. And also the difference is the implicit versus explicit memory. The system 1 is responsible for the implicit memory. This is, think of this as a memory that starts forming in the last trimester of pregnancy, before birth. It stores states and sensation in our subconscious. It's hard to reach, but these automatic patterns very easily comes out in communication. System 2 deals with explicit memory, which develops from age around 2 to 5. We don't have conscious memory before that, and because it developed this way, people might forget what you say, but they will never forget how you make them feel. For communication, that means that the person in front of you feels when you speak to them. That remains in their implicit memory. Like if I have a memory when I was younger that a cat scratched me, I will have that feeling when I see cats, that feeling of hurt or scared when I was a little girl. It's very important also in communication that the other person feels warm and safe in all the conversations you are having. You must not start communication if you haven't established that psychology safety space where the person feels okay. And the final takeaway, what we should take from all this biology, although we have only one brain, it operates in 2 decision-making system. One is the conscious, the flexible, the explicit, the abstract, focus on the positive, ready for the innovation, looking at the past and seeking the future. The other is the unconscious one, is the strong, is automatic, is the implicit, emotional, concrete, focus on only on the present without analyzing the emotional impact of these words. So knowing these truths give you an unimaginable power, because you know that the negative information weighs 3 times more than the positive one. So if you give a bad feedback to someone, don't give it all at once. You need to balance it. There is this rule, sandwich rule, where you give 1 negative comment and 3 positive one, so the other person stays consistent to communicate. You know the implicit memory is strong, and what matters most is how you make others feel, not the exact words you say. So pay attention to their non-verbal language, their emotion, and their reactions before you speak. You understand the unconscious system is far more powerful and focused on the present. So you choose to think about the consequences of the discussion, not just about the immediate point and the need to release. Rather, what matters, what happens tomorrow after this conversation, is how I operate today. So, you know, the unconscious system is rigid, so you keep your mind flexible and learn to consider someone else's option. You create an energetic space where you allow the other person to say what they need to say. And for even a deeper understanding of how we are built, we need to talk about the 2 pathways of the nervous system. I know it might sound complicated, but it's really important to understand why we say and what we say and how it impacts the life we live. Communication is emotional first, intellectual second. You don't need to become perfect, but you need to become aware. Because once you are aware, you understand how fast the unconscious react, how fragile the conscious control is, how deeply emotional imprint you gain choice, and choice is power. But here is the part that most people never learn. System 1 doesn't just live in the brain, it lives in the nervous system. And until you understand why your body reacts before your mind, you'll keep repeating the same conversations, the same conflicts, and the same patterns. In the next video, I will show you the 2 nervous system pathways that decide wherever you respond with calm or lose control before you even speak. So, see you next time. Thank you for watching.